The crystal chandeliers of the San Diego Hilton ballroom cast a warm glow over the crowd of veterans and supporters. Sarah Martinez stood near the dessert table, her navy blue dress modest and elegant, her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun. She'd been invited to speak at this charity gala for veteran PTSD services, an honor she'd almost declined. Public appearances still made her uncomfortable, even 3 years after leaving the service. Ms. Martinez, a young woman approached, stars in her eyes. That speech you gave was incredible. My brother is in the Navy, and hearing your story, it means everything. Sarah smiled warmly, gripping the woman's hand. Thank you. Tell your brother we appreciate his service. As the woman walked away, Sarah felt the familiar weight of eyes on her. She'd learned to trust that instinct in Ramadi and Mosul. Someone was watching her, studying her. She turned slowly, scanning the room with practiced subtlety. There, by the bar, a man in his mid-30s, muscular build, wearing a tactical vest over a black t-shirt despite the formal dress code. He held his phone up, camera pointed directly at her. Their eyes met and he smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was predatory. He started walking toward her, his phone still recording. "Excuse me," he called out loudly, his voice cutting through the ambient conversation. "Sarah Martinez, right?" Several heads turned. Sarah's stomach tightened, but she maintained her composure. "Yes." "Marcus Holloway." He extended his hand, but his phone remained raised in the other. "I run a YouTube channel called Valor Guardians. We expose stolen valor frauds." Sarah didn't take his hand. "I'm familiar with your work." "Great," his smile widened. "Then you won't mind answering a few questions, for verification purposes." The conversations around them had stopped. A circle of onlookers was forming. Sarah recognized this tactic, public confrontation, designed to rattle the target, catch them in a lie. She'd seen his videos. He ambushed people at events, asked rapid-fire technical questions, then edited the footage to make veterans look suspicious. "This isn't really the appropriate venue," Sarah began. "Simple questions," Marcus interrupted, his voice louder now, playing to his growing audience. "You claim you were a Navy SEAL, correct?" "I served in Naval Special Warfare." Right, so tell me, what week of Bud S is Hell Week?" "Week 4. "How long is Hell Week?" 5.5 days, approximately 130 hours. "What's the obstacle course record at Bud S?" "It changes, but when I went through, it was around 5 minutes 20 seconds. Marcus's confident expression flickered. Most frauds stumbled on basic questions. He adjusted his approach. "Okay, so you know the Wikipedia basics. Let's get specific. What year did you graduate Bud S?" 2017. His eyes lit up. 2017. That's interesting. He turned to address the crowd, his voice theatrical. "Ladies and gentlemen, women were not allowed in SEAL training in 2017. The first woman didn't even attempt Bud S until 2019, and she didn't make it." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah felt her face flush but kept her voice steady. "That's not entirely accurate." "Are you calling me a liar?" Marcus stepped closer, aggressive now, sensing blood in the water. "I've been covering military news for 8 years. I know the timeline. Women weren't even allowed to try until 2016, and the program was barely in its infancy in 2017. There were no female SEAL graduates in 2017. None. There were circumstances." "Circumstances?" He laughed, harsh and mocking. "That's what they all say. It was classified. It was special circumstances. My records are sealed." He made air quotes with his free hand, his phone still capturing every moment. "I've heard every excuse from every fake out there." An older veteran in the crowd spoke up. "Son, maybe you should let the lady explain." "Explain what?" "Explain how she stole the valor of real SEALs." Marcus was in full performance mode now, his voice rising. "Do you know how hard Bud S is? Do you know how many men, real warriors, have died earning that trident? And this woman stands here in a room full of real veterans, wearing it like a costume. Sarah's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to walk away, but leaving now would look like an admission of guilt. The crowd's energy had shifted. Some faces showed doubt. Others looked angry. A few seemed uncomfortable but said nothing. "I'm not going to debate my service record with you," Sarah said quietly, but her voice carried. "If you have legitimate questions, you can submit them through proper channels." "Proper channels," Marcus laughed again. "The proper channel is right here, right now. You made claims in a public speech. I'm asking you to back them up." He turned to the crowd again. "This is how they operate, folks. They tell these elaborate stories, but when you ask for proof, suddenly it's all classified, or they get defensive, or they try to leave." A woman in the crowd called out, "Do you have any proof of your service?" Sarah's throat tightened. "My DD-214 is at home." "A DD-214 can be faked," Marcus interjected smoothly. "In fact, that's stolen valor 101. You can buy fake DD-214s online for $50. I also have photographs." Photoshop, next excuse. The crowd's mood was turning hostile. Sarah could feel it, that shift in energy she'd felt before firefights, when the situation was deteriorating fast. An elderly man wearing a Medal of Honor around his neck stared at her with disappointment etched into his weathered face. That look hurt more than Marcus's accusations. "You should be ashamed of yourself," a woman hissed from the crowd. Security guards appeared, summoned by the hotel staff. Marcus pointed at Sarah triumphantly. "This woman is committing stolen valor, a federal crime. She's impersonating a Navy SEAL." One of the security guards, an older man with a military bearing, looked at Sarah with barely concealed disgust. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us." "I haven't done anything wrong," Sarah protested. "We've called the base commander at Naval Base Coronado," the guard said firmly. "You can explain yourself to him." As they moved toward her, Sarah's military training kicked in. Don't resist. Don't escalate. Comply and sort it out later. But every instinct screamed that this was wrong, fundamentally, terribly wrong. The guards took her arms, not roughly but firmly. They produced zip ties instead of handcuffs. The plastic bit into her wrists as they tightened them. Marcus circled around, his phone capturing every angle. And there you have it, folks. Another fake SEAL exposed. This is going to be a good one. As they led her toward the exit, Sarah caught fragments of conversation from the crowd. "I can't believe she had the audacity. These stolen valor people are disgusting. My son died earning his trident, and she just..." The elderly veteran with the Medal of Honor slowly shook his head, turned his back, and walked away. That gesture, more than anything else, made Sarah's eyes burn with unshed tears. She'd survived Hell Week. She'd survived combat. She'd survived wounds that should have killed her. But as the hotel doors closed behind her and the night air hit her face, Sarah wondered if she would survive this. The destruction of her reputation, her honor, her truth. Marcus Holloway's voice echoed behind her. "Make sure you all subscribe and share this video, folks. We need to spread the word about frauds like her." The security vehicle's doors slammed shut. Her nightmare was just beginning. The interrogation room at Naval Base Coronado smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. Sarah sat in a metal chair bolted to the floor, her wrists finally free from the zip ties but still bearing angry red marks. The room was deliberately uncomfortable. Fluorescent lights too bright, temperature too cold, walls painted an institutional beige designed to strip away dignity. She'd been here for 3 hours. 2 NCIS agents sat across from her at a scarred metal table. Agent David Morrison was in his late 40s, built like a linebacker, with steel-gray hair and eyes that held nothing but contempt. Agent Lisa Chen was younger, perhaps 35, with sharp features and an analytical gaze that missed nothing. Morrison slapped a manila folder on the table, making Sarah flinch despite her training. Let's go through this one more time, he said, his voice dripping with disgust. You claim you graduated Bud S in 2017. I did. You claim you served as a Navy SEAL. I did. You claim you deployed to combat zones. Twice, Iraq and Syria. Morrison leaned back, crossing his arms. Do you have any idea how many people I've sat across from in this room? Liars, frauds, people who think they can steal the honor that real warriors earned with blood and sacrifice. I'm not lying. Really? He opened the folder and spread photographs across the table. Sarah's breath caught. There she was, in full tactical gear, weapon in hand, face painted with camouflage. Another photo showed her with her training class. All men, standing in formation at Bud S. Another captured her receiving the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal. Her life, her service, her truth, spread out like evidence at a crime scene. Where did you get these? Morrison demanded. They're from my service. No, I mean, where did you steal these? Whose identity did you take? Which real SEAL's life did you hijack for your little fantasy? Sarah's hands clenched on the table. Those are my photos, my service, my missions. Agent Chen leaned forward, her voice quieter but no less intense. Ms. Martinez, we've run your information through every database available to us. JPAS, DEERS, Navy Personnel Command, the Naval Special Warfare Command Database. She paused. You don't exist. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Not as a SEAL, Chen continued. We found your basic service record. Yes, you were in the Navy, but as an intelligence specialist. You never attended Bud S. You were never assigned to a SEAL team. You never deployed with Naval Special Warfare. My records are classified under a different program. Morrison slammed his hand on the table. Stop, every fraud says that. My records are classified. I was on a secret mission. I can't talk about it because it's above top secret. His voice rose with each word. Do you think we're idiots? I think your databases don't have access to. To what? To imaginary programs. Morrison stood, packing like a caged animal. Let me tell you something about classification. I have a top secret SCI clearance. Agent Chen has TS-SCI. We've worked with DEVGRU SEAL Team 6 Delta Force CIA Special Activities. We know what classified looks like. And you know what? Classified operators still exist in some database. There's always a paper trail, even if it's buried deep. He spun to face her. But you're a ghost, and not the good kind of ghost, the fake kind. The kind that gets created in Photoshop and spun into elaborate lies. Sarah felt her composure cracking. 3 years of silence, of being unable to talk about her service, of watching other female candidates publicly attempt SEAL training, while her own successful completion remained buried. It all pressed down on her like a physical weight. I know how this sounds. Do you? Chen interrupted, and for the first time Sarah heard genuine emotion in her voice. Anger. My brother is a Navy SEAL. He went through hell weak. He lost friends in training. He lost more friends in combat. And people like you, people who pretend to have done what he's done, it destroys something in him. Every time he sees stolen valor, a piece of his respect for his own service dies. The accusation stung worse than Morrison's aggression. I'm not pretending, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. I lived it, every freezing second of surf torture, every mile of running with boats on our heads, every night dive, every underwater knot tying test, every log PT session until we couldn't feel our bodies anymore. I was there. Then prove it, Morrison demanded. Give us one piece of verifiable evidence. Sarah's mind raced. Everything was classified. Her orders, her deployment records, her award citations. Even the unit she'd served with had a cover designation that looked like a standard logistics command on paper. I can give you names of my commanding officers. Names we can't verify because they're classified. Morrison made air quotes. I can give you details of missions. That we can't confirm because they're classified, Chen echoed. Sarah felt trapped in a circular firing squad of logic. Every truth she offered sounded like a lie. Morrison pulled out his phone and turned it toward her. The screen showed Marcus Holloway's video. The view count had climbed to 5 million. The title screamed, "Fake Female SEAL ARRESTED AT Naval Base, Caught Red-Handed." "You're famous," Morrison said coldly. "This video has been shared by every major military news site. Military Times picked it up, Task and Purpose, SOFREP, even CNN is running the story." He scrolled through the comments section. "Listen to this, she should be in prison for life. Stolen valor scum deserve worse than jail. My husband died a SEAL and this bitch disrespects his memory." He set the phone down, and the video kept playing. Marcus's voice narrating her arrest, speculating about her motives, calling for maximum prosecution. "By morning," Morrison continued, "your face will be synonymous with stolen valor. You'll be the poster child for everything wrong with military fraud. Your life is over." Sarah's eyes stung, but she refused to cry in front of them. Chen pulled out another tablet and began scrolling through social media. "Someone posted your home address on Reddit 2 hours ago. There are already people gathering outside your house. Someone spray-painted fraud across your garage door." She looked up. "Your employer called the base commander. You've been fired. Your friends are deleting photos with you. Your mother's phone is ringing off the hook with death threats." The room seemed to shrink. Sarah had faced enemy fire without flinching, but this systematic destruction of her entire life was a different kind of warfare, one she wasn't trained for. "Last chance," Morrison said, leaning close enough that she could smell his coffee breath. "Admit this was all a lie. Admit you got caught up in a fantasy, that you wanted attention, that you stole these photos and fabricated this story. Show some remorse and maybe we can recommend leniency to the prosecutor." Sarah lifted her eyes to meet his. Despite everything, despite the fear and exhaustion and overwhelming injustice of it all, her voice was steady. "No." "No," Morrison's face reddened. "No, because it's not a lie. I served. I earned my trident. I bled for this country." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "And I'll sit in this room for as long as it takes until someone with the right clearance level confirms what I'm telling you." Morrison's jaw clenched. He grabbed the folder and photographs, shoving them back together violently. "Fine, we'll see how long that stubborn pride lasts." He headed for the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Ms. Martinez, we've contacted the FBI. They're opening a stolen valor investigation. This is federal now. You're looking at years in prison." The door slammed behind them, leaving Sarah alone in the too-bright room. She stared at the two-way mirror, knowing people were watching, judging, preparing her prosecution. Somewhere in this base, buried in classified files that these agents couldn't access, was the truth. Admiral Rodriguez's signature on her graduation certificate. Mission reports with her name redacted but her actions documented. Brothers in arms who knew exactly who she was and what she'd done. But they were all locked behind walls of classification that might as well be prison walls. Sarah closed her eyes and did what she'd done during Hell Week when her body screamed to quit. She found her center, her unshakable truth, and held onto it like a lifeline. The tattoo on her inner forearm began to itch. She didn't know it yet, but that tattoo would save her life. Hour 6. The fluorescent lights hummed their monotonous song. Sarah's mouth was dry, her head pounding from dehydration and stress. They'd given her water once, a single plastic cup 4 hours ago. The interrogation tactics were textbook: isolation, discomfort, repetition, psychological pressure. Agent Morrison returned with a laptop, Agent Chen trailing behind him. This time, Morrison's expression had shifted from contempt to something worse: satisfaction. "You need to see this," he said, spinning the laptop to face her. The screen displayed a news website. The headline made Sarah's stomach drop. "Stolen Valor. Woman arrested claiming to be Navy SEAL. Experts say she's a complete fraud. Morrison clicked to a video. A military analyst, a retired SEAL commander, sat in a television studio. Sarah recognized him, Commander Brett Hartwell, a frequent Fox News commentator who'd written 3 best-selling books about his service. "This is clearly a case of stolen valor," Hartwell was saying, his voice authoritative and damning. "I've reviewed the timeline, and I can definitively say that no women graduated BUD/S in 2017. The integration program was still in preliminary phases. This woman is lying, and she's insulting every SEAL who ever earned that trident." The interviewer leaned forward. "But Commander, she seems to know specific details about BUD/S training." "Anyone can Google that information," Hartwell interrupted. "Real SEALs know things you can't find online. The feel of the ocean at 2 a.m. during surf torture, the specific pain of boat carries, the mental break that happens around hour 80 of Hell Week. This woman memorized facts, but she never lived the reality." Morrison paused the video. "That's a real SEAL calling you a fraud, on national television." Sarah's hands trembled. She clasped them together under the table. "He doesn't know." "He knows more than you ever will," Morrison snapped. He clicked to another tab, Twitter. The trending topics list showed fake SEAL at number 3 nationally. Stolen valor was number 7. Morrison began reading tweets aloud, his voice mocking. "This woman should be ashamed. My son died in BUD/S and she dishonors his memory. Lock her up and throw away the key. Women like this are why real female veterans aren't taken seriously." He looked up. "That last one's interesting, isn't it? You're not just destroying your own credibility, you're hurting every actual female veteran out there." Chen opened her tablet and pulled up Instagram. Marcus Holloway's follower count has jumped by 800,000 since he posted that video. "He's being called a hero for exposing you." She scrolled through his feed. "He's done follow-up videos. In this one, he analyzes your body language, claims you showed classic deception indicators. In this one, he's interviewing other experts who all agree you're a fraud." The videos autoplayed. Marcus's face filled the screen, his expression grave and righteous. "I want to be clear. I take no pleasure in exposing Sarah Martinez, but stolen valor is a cancer in the veteran community. These frauds take resources from real veterans, they manipulate people's emotions, they profit from lies. Sarah Martinez gave a speech tonight and probably got paid for it. She's been giving speeches for months, maybe years, collecting fees for sharing her story. But it's not her story. She stole it from real SEALs." The video cut to testimonials from other veterans, their faces pixelated, voices disguised. "People like her make it harder for us real vets to be believed. She's probably never even heard a shot fired in anger. It's always the fakes who talk the most about their service." Morrison closed the laptop. "As of 20 minutes ago, the story's been picked up by the Associated Press. It'll be in every newspaper in America by morning, international news by tomorrow afternoon." Sarah felt the walls closing in. This wasn't just an interrogation anymore. This was a public execution. Chen pulled out her phone and began reading from it. "Your mother received 143 threatening phone calls in the last 3 hours. Your sister's employer received so many complaints that they've placed her on administrative leave, guilt by association. Your college roommate posted on Facebook defending you, and she's now being harassed so badly she deleted all her social media accounts." "Stop," Sarah whispered. "Your former employer released a statement," Chen continued relentlessly. "We are shocked and appalled to learn of Ms. Martinez's deception. We terminated her employment immediately and are reviewing whether we have grounds for fraud charges regarding her veteran status on her employment application." "Stop," Sarah said louder. Morrison leaned across the table. "Your apartment building manager left you a voicemail. Want to hear it?" He didn't wait for an answer, pressing play on his phone. An angry male voice blared from the speaker. "Ms. Martinez, this is Dale from Oak Grove Apartments. We've had numerous complaints from other residents, and there are protesters outside the building. This is a violation of your lease terms regarding disturbances. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises or we'll begin eviction proceedings." "Where am I supposed to go?" Sarah's voice cracked. "You have me detained here." "That's not our problem," Morrison said coldly. "But don't worry, you might be in federal custody soon anyway." Chen pulled up another website, a crowdfunding page. "Look at this. Justice for Real Seals, legal fund to prosecute Sarah Martinez. They've raised $47,000 in 4 hours. People are so angry, they're paying to ensure you get prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." The page was filled with comments, each one angrier than the last. Sarah forced herself to read them. "My husband earned his trident. This bitch dishonors his sacrifice. I hope she gets the maximum sentence. Make an example of her. Women who lie about military service are the lowest form of life. She should be tried for treason and shot." Morrison refreshed the page. $49,000 now. It's going up by the minute. Sarah's vision blurred. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. She'd survived real combat, faced real enemies, risked her life for people who now wanted her destroyed. "Here's my favorite part," Morrison said, pulling up another video. "This went viral an hour ago." The screen showed a group of men in motorcycle vests, a veterans motorcycle club. Their spokesman, a grizzled man with a thick beard, spoke directly to the camera. "We're the Warrior Brotherhood MC, and we've got a message for Sarah Martinez. We know where you live, we know where you work, and we're going to make sure everyone knows you're a fraud. You don't get to hide behind your lies. We protect real veterans and we expose fakes. Consider yourself warned." The threat was clear, thinly veiled as civic duty. "That's witness intimidation," Sarah managed. "That's illegal." "Is it?" Morrison shrugged. "They're just expressing their First Amendment rights, concerned citizens wanting justice." Chen set down her tablet and looked at Sarah with something that might have been pity. "Ms. Martinez, I'm going to be honest with you. Even if, and this is a massive if, even if you somehow had legitimate service that we can't verify, your life is over. Your reputation is destroyed. Your name is permanently associated with fraud. Even if you're cleared, the damage is done." She pulled up a Wikipedia page that had been created within the last 2 hours. Sarah Martinez, Stolen Valor. The article detailed the accusations, included quotes from Commander Hartwell, embedded Marcus's videos, and concluded with a section titled Impact on Female Veterans. "Someone created this," Chen said. "It's already been viewed 200,000 times. This is your legacy now." Sarah stared at the screen, at the distortion of her life, at the narrative being written without her input. Every word was technically accurate but fundamentally wrong. Yes, she'd been arrested. Yes, experts questioned her story. Yes, she couldn't provide immediately verifiable proof. But the conclusion that she was a liar and a fraud was catastrophically false. Morrison pulled out his phone again. New video from Holloway just dropped. Sarah Martinez, Analyzing the Lies Part 2. He's milking this for all it's worth. His channel will probably get monetized partnerships from this. You've made him rich and famous. On the phone screen, Marcus spoke earnestly to the camera. "I've received hundreds of messages from real veterans thanking me for exposing Sarah Martinez. This is bigger than one person. This is about protecting the integrity of military service. I won't stop until justice is served." The comments below his video were a chorus of support and rage. Sarah closed her eyes. Somewhere in the Pentagon, in Admiral Rodriguez's locked files, was a different truth. Mission reports, deployment records, awards, recommendations. Brothers in arms who knew her name, her face, her sacrifice. But they were silent, bound by classification protocols that Sarah herself had sworn to uphold. She was drowning in a sea of lies, while the truth was locked in a vault she couldn't open. Morrison stood. "We're going to take a break. Let you think about things, consider your options. He paused at the door. By the way, the FBI will be here in the morning. They've got questions too. Hope you're ready. The door closed with a hollow thud. Sarah was alone again, but not really. Out there, millions of people were watching her destruction in real time, adding their voices to the chorus calling for her head. She looked down at her forearm, at the tattoo hidden beneath her sleeve. It was time. Sarah sat alone in the cold interrogation room, staring at the mirror. Behind her reflection, she saw another image, not the exhausted woman being accused of lies, but the fierce warrior she'd once been. The memories came flooding back. Summer 2016. 28-year-old Sarah Martinez had stood in Admiral Catherine Rodriguez's office in Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters. The Admiral's eyes had been sharp, assessing, calculating. "You understand what you're volunteering for?" Rodriguez had asked. "Yes, ma'am." "You understand that if you succeed, no one will know. Your name won't be in any press release. There won't be any ticker-tape parade. Your service will be classified at a level that makes it essentially invisible." Sarah had nodded. "I understand." "Why?" Rodriguez had leaned forward. "Why volunteer for something that might get you killed, that will definitely break you, and that no one will ever acknowledge?" Sarah had thought of her father, blown apart by an IED in Fallujah when she was 17. She'd worn his dog tags ever since. "Because someone has to be first, ma'am. Someone has to prove it can be done." Rodriguez had studied her for a long moment, then slid a folder across the desk. "Operation Silent Trident. 5 candidates, fully classified. You'll train alongside male candidates under administrative cover. If anyone asks, you're assigned to intelligence analysis. Your real training will be buried under classification protocols so deep that even standard military databases won't show it." "Why the secrecy?" "Politics." Rodriguez's expression had been bitter. "The Pentagon is ready to test female integration into SEAL teams, but Congress isn't. Half the politicians want to make it a campaign issue. The other half want to block it entirely. So we're doing it quietly. If you succeed, you'll prove it's possible. If you fail," she'd paused, "well, no one will know you tried." Sarah had opened the folder. 4 other names. 4 other women willing to become ghosts. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow, pack light. And Martinez," Rodriguez had caught her at the door, "don't expect mercy. The instructors won't go easy on you. If anything, they'll be harder on you. You'll have to be better than good. You'll have to be exceptional." Bud S. Hell Week, hour 73. The Pacific Ocean was a liquid nightmare, 58 degrees and pitch black. Sarah's body had stopped shivering hours ago, a bad sign. Hypothermia was setting in. Around her, men twice her size were quitting, ringing the brass bell that meant surrender. Instructor Davis stood on the beach, his voice cutting through the darkness. "Martinez, you're too small, you're too weak. This is a man's world and you don't belong here. Ring the bell, save yourself the humiliation." Sarah's arms were numb. Her legs barely responded. But she'd learned something during the previous 73 hours of continuous physical torture. Pain was temporary, but quitting was forever. "No, instructor." "No," Davis got in her face, his breath hot against her frozen skin. "Your classmate just quit. He was a college football star, 220 pounds of muscle. If he couldn't make it, what makes you think you can?" Sarah pressed her father's dog tags against her chest, the only personal item allowed. "Because I have to, instructor." "You don't have to do anything except ring that bell." But Sarah didn't ring it. She didn't ring it during the underwater knot-tying test when her oxygen-starved brain screamed for air. She didn't ring it during log PT when the 200-pound telephone pole nearly crushed her. She didn't ring it when every fiber of her being begged for mercy. Of the 5 women who started Operation Silent Trident, 2 rang the bell during Hell Week. Another broke her leg during dive training. That left 2, Sarah and Jessica Chen, a former Olympic swimmer. They became ghosts, invisible women training among visible men. Ramadi, Iraq 2018. The intel had been solid. High-value target, third floor, apartment building in the Sunni Triangle. Sarah's team moved through the darkness like smoke. She was Breacher, the one who opened doors, who went first into the unknown. Her heart rate was steady at 62 beats per minute. Years of training had taught her to control the fear, channel it, use it. The door exploded inward. Sarah moved through the breach, weapon up, scanning sectors. 2 hostiles in the main room. Her teammate dropped one. She engaged the other. 2 shots sent her mass. The hostile fell. Movement to her right. A woman with a child, terrified, screaming. Sarah's finger was on the trigger, 1 pound of pressure away from firing. But something in the woman's eyes, pure terror, not aggression, made Sarah hold fire. Clear civilian with child. The high-value target tried to escape through a back window. Sarah's teammate tackled him. The mission was complete, 13 minutes from breach to extraction. Later in the debriefing, her team leader, a grizzled master chief named Sullivan, had pulled her aside. "Martinez, that was good work tonight. That split-second decision with the civilian, some guys would have fired. You read the situation correctly." "Just doing my job, Master Chief." Sullivan had looked at her with something like respect. "You know what the guys call you?" "I don't want to know." "They call you Shadow, because you're there when it matters, but most people don't even know you exist." He'd clapped her shoulder. "Wear it like a badge of honor." Syria 2019. The firefight had erupted without warning. Sarah's team was pinned down, taking fire from 3 directions. Her teammate, Rodriguez, no relation to the Admiral, had taken a round through the leg, femoral artery. He had minutes to live. Sarah had made the decision instantly. She'd thrown Rodriguez over her shoulder in a fireman's carry, all 190 pounds of him, and ran. Bullets kicked up sand around her feet. Something hot grazed her arm. She kept running. 3 miles to the extraction point. Rodriguez was bleeding out, screaming, begging her to leave him. "Not happening, Rodriguez. You're going home." Her legs burned. Her lungs were on fire, but she'd carried logs during Hell Week that weighed more than Rodriguez. She'd run obstacle courses with boats on her head. This was just another training evolution, except the stakes were life and death. She reached the extraction point with 30 seconds to spare. Rodriguez survived. She'd received the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Valor for that action. The citation was classified. Rodriguez knew what she'd done. Their team knew. Admiral Rodriguez knew. But the medal sat in a safe deposit box, its existence erased from official records. Back to the present. Sarah opened her eyes in the interrogation room. Those missions were real. The brothers she'd served with were real. The blood she'd shed was real. But to the world outside this room, she was a liar. Jessica Chen, her fellow Silent Trident graduate, had been killed in action in 2020. Her family had been told she died in a training accident. No one attended her military funeral except a handful of people with high enough clearances to know the truth. Sarah had stood at that funeral watching Jessica's mother weep, unable to tell her that her daughter was a hero, unable to share the classified missions they'd completed together, unable to give her the honor she deserved. Now Sarah faced the same fate, not death in combat, but destruction by disbelief. The irony was crushing. She'd volunteered for anonymity, accepted that her service would remain secret, made peace with being invisible. But she'd never imagined this, being visible for all the wrong reasons, her service not just hidden but actively denied. Her sacrifice had been complete. She'd given everything, including her right to be believed. Admiral Rodriguez had warned her, the price of being first is often paid in silence. Sarah hadn't understood then. She was beginning to understand now. The door opened. Agents Morrison and Chen returned, their expressions harder than before. "We've got the FBI on video conference," Morrison announced. "They want to ask you some questions, and trust me, they're not as patient as we are." Sarah straightened in her chair. Let them come. Let them ask their questions. She'd survived Hell Week. She'd survived combat. She would survive this too. But as she prepared for the next round of interrogation, one thought kept echoing in her mind. How long could truth survive when it was buried under classification, drowned out by millions of voices screaming that it was a lie? She was about to find out. Hour 7. Sarah's body was reaching its breaking point. She'd gone through SEER training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, where they'd taught her to withstand interrogation. But this was different. This wasn't a training scenario with a defined endpoint. This was her life disintegrating in real time with no rescue coming. The FBI video conference had been brutal. Special Agent Warren, a stern woman with decades of experience prosecuting fraud cases, had spent 40 minutes dissecting every aspect of Sarah's story. Her questions had been surgical, designed to find contradictions, inconsistencies, any crack in Sarah's narrative. There were no cracks, because it wasn't a narrative, it was the truth. But truth without evidence was just another story, and Special Agent Warren had made it clear. They were building a federal case. Stolen Valor Act violations, fraud, possibly identity theft if they could prove Sarah had assumed another SEAL's identity. The charges were stacking up like cordwood, ready to burn Sarah's future to ash. Now Morrison and Chen sat across from her again. Morrison had been on his phone for the last 10 minutes, speaking in low tones, occasionally glancing at Sarah with an expression that had shifted from contempt to something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or suspicion of a different kind. "Your story hasn't changed," Chen observed, breaking the silence. "Most frauds start falling apart by now. They contradict themselves, forget details, start bargaining." "That's because I'm not lying," Sarah said, her voice hoarse from hours of talking. Morrison set down his phone. "We contacted Commander Hartwell, the SEAL who called you a fraud on Fox News, wanted his expert opinion on some of the details you've provided." Sarah's stomach clenched, another nail in her coffin. "And," she asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "He said your knowledge is too detailed." Morrison's eyes narrowed. "He said most stolen valor cases rely on Wikipedia-level information, but you know things, small things, specific things, that wouldn't be in any public database." A flicker of hope, "So he believes me." "No," Morrison crushed that hope immediately. "He thinks you got close to a real SEAL, maybe dated one, maybe befriended one, and he told you things, intimate details, and you memorized them to make your story more convincing." Sarah's head dropped forward. Of course, every piece of evidence could be explained away. Every truth could be twisted into a more elaborate lie. "Ms. Martinez," Chen said, her voice softer now, "I want to believe you, I really do, but you have to understand our position. We've seen hundreds of these cases, and the more elaborate the story, the more likely it's fabricated. Real operators don't need to convince anyone. Their records speak for themselves." "My records are sealed." "So you keep saying." Morrison leaned back, studying her. "Here's what I don't understand. If your service was so classified, why speak at public events? Why draw attention to yourself? Real Black Ops personnel stay in the shadows." Sarah lifted her head, met his eyes. "Because Admiral Rodriguez asked me to. She said that once the integration program was eventually declassified, we'd need advocates. Women who could speak about the reality of female special operators. She said staying completely silent would be worse than controlled visibility. Convenient that the Admiral who can verify your story is, let me guess, unreachable." Morrison's sarcasm was thick. "She's NAVSBCWAR command. You could contact her." "We tried." Chen pulled out her tablet. "Her office said she's on classified assignment. No ETA for return. No way to reach her except through official channels that take 48-72 hours. Sarah's hope crumbled. Admiral Rodriguez was unreachable. By the time they got through official channels, Sarah would already be charged, her name completely destroyed. She slumped in the chair, exhaustion overwhelming her. Without thinking, she raised her right hand to rub her face, her sleeve sliding down her forearm. "Wait," Chen's voice was sharp. "What's that?" Sarah froze. "What's what?" "Your arm, there's a tattoo." Chen stood, moving around the table. "Let me see it." Sarah's pulse quickened. She'd forgotten about the tattoo, so accustomed to it that it felt like part of her skin. Slowly, she rolled up her sleeve. The tattoo was intricate, approximately 3 inches long. At first glance, it looked like a standard Navy SEAL trident, an eagle clutching a pistol, trident, and anchor. But the details were different. The eagle's talons held an additional element. A small compass rose with 8 points, and woven into the anchor's chain were Roman numerals, XVII. Chen's eyes widened. She grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling it closer to examine the tattoo under the harsh fluorescent light. "Where did you get this?" Her voice was urgent now, no longer accusatory. It's from my team," Sarah said carefully. "This isn't a standard SEAL trident." Chen's finger traced the compass rose. "This modification, I've seen something like this before, in a classified briefing, 3 years ago." She looked up at Morrison. "We need to make a call, now." Morrison stood, moving closer. "What are you talking about?" "Look at the details," Chen pointed. The compass rose 8 points. The Roman numerals XVII. This isn't something you can just walk into a tattoo parlor and get. This is, she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. This is operational art, specific to certain units. Sarah's heart pounded. Someone recognized it. Finally, someone saw what it meant. Morrison squinted at the tattoo. "It looks like a regular trident to me. Maybe she modified it to make her story more convincing." "No." Chen was already pulling out her phone. There was a briefing about unit identifiers, ways that classified operators maintain connection without compromising OPSEC. Some units use modified insignia. Some use specific phrases. Some use tattoos with subtle alterations that mean nothing to civilians but everything to those in the know. She scrolled through her phone frantically. There was a name mentioned in that briefing, an admiral overseeing a classified integration program. I didn't pay much attention because it wasn't relevant to my cases then, but the name was Rodriguez, Admiral Catherine Rodriguez. Morrison's expression shifted. "That's the same name she's been giving us." "Exactly." Chen found what she was looking for on her phone. "Here, Admiral Catherine Rodriguez, Naval Special Warfare Command, Deputy Commander for Special Operations. Her clearance level is above ours, way above." Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. "I told you. I've been telling you for 7 hours." Chen ignored her, dialing a number. The phone rang and went to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. "It's 2 a.m., Morrison pointed out. "Even admirals sleep." "Not one's in NAVSPECWAR command." Chen tried a different number. "They have 24-hour operations centers. Someone will know how to reach her." This time, someone answered. Chen identified herself, explained the situation in vague terms. A detainee claiming classified service under Admiral Rodriguez's command. Verification needed urgently. The voice on the other end asked questions. Chen answered, occasionally glancing at Sarah. Finally, she said, "Yes, I understand. How long?" 3 hours, we'll wait." She hung up and looked at Sarah with an expression that was no longer hostile. It was cautious, uncertain. "Admiral Rodriguez is at JSOC headquarters in North Carolina. She's in a classified briefing, but they're pulling her out. She'll call back within 3 hours. Morrison crossed his arms. "That doesn't prove anything. Maybe Rodriguez will confirm she's a fraud." Maybe. Chen sat down across from Sarah again, but her posture had changed. She was no longer an interrogator. She was something else, a person beginning to doubt her certainty. But that tattoo, Ms. Martinez, if you're lying, you've created the most elaborate stolen valor case I've ever seen, and I've seen hundreds. I'm not lying, Sarah whispered. I've never been lying. The room fell silent except for the humming fluorescent lights. Outside, dawn was breaking over San Diego. Sarah had been detained for 8 hours. Her life had been destroyed. Millions of people believed she was a fraud. But that tattoo, that small, modified trident, was a beacon in the darkness. A thread connecting her to the truth that had been buried so deep that even trained investigators couldn't find it. Morrison paced, clearly uncomfortable with the uncertainty. 3 hours. If Rodriguez says she doesn't know you, this is over. You'll be charged within the hour. And if she confirms my service? Sarah asked. Morrison and Chen exchanged glances. The implications were enormous. A false arrest, a wrongful detention, a decorated seal destroyed by her own people. Then we have a lot of apologies to make, Chen said quietly. Sarah looked at her tattoo, at the compass rose that symbolized finding direction in chaos, at the Roman numerals Roman 17, 2017, the year she'd graduated. Admiral Rodriguez had given her this tattoo personally, in a small ceremony with only the 3 silent Trident graduates who completed the program. You're invisible to the world, Rodriguez had said, but you'll always be visible to each other. This mark means something. Remember that. Now that mark was the only thing standing between Sarah and complete destruction. 3 hours. 3 hours to find out if truth could survive its burial. Sarah closed her eyes and began to count the seconds. The 3 hours felt like 3 lifetimes. Sarah sat in the interrogation room, no longer alone. Agent Chen had brought her coffee, real coffee, not the bitter sludge from before, and a sandwich from the base cafeteria. The shift in treatment was subtle but significant. They weren't treating her like a confirmed criminal anymore. They were treating her like a question mark. Morrison had left the room twice to take phone calls. Each time he returned, his expression was more troubled. The second time, he'd sat down heavily and said, Marcus Holloway's video is at 9 million views. CNN is running your story as their lead. They're calling it the biggest stolen valor case in naval history. Sarah had simply nodded. What else was there to say? Chen kept glancing at Sarah's tattoo, then at her tablet, then back at the tattoo. She was cross-referencing something, comparing, analyzing. Finally, she'd said, the briefing I attended 3 years ago, it was about operational security for classified programs. They showed examples of how units maintain cohesion while staying invisible. One example was a SEAL team that used modified insignia. The presenter said it was like a secret handshake in plain sight. That's exactly what it is, Sarah had said quietly. Now at 4:47 a.m., Chen's phone rang. She grabbed it like a lifeline, answered immediately. Special Agent Chen. She listened, her face unreadable. Then, yes, Admiral, yes, ma'am, she's here. We have her in interrogation room 3. A pause. Understood, we'll wait. She hung up and looked at Morrison. She's landing in 12 minutes. Helicopter to the base helipad. She'll be here in 15. Morrison stood abruptly, running his hand through his hair. For the first time since Sarah had met him, he looked uncertain, worried even. If we're wrong about this. We followed protocol, Chen interrupted. We had reasonable suspicion. We investigated, that's our job. That's not going to matter if she's real, Morrison gestured at Sarah. We detained a decorated SEAL, interrogated her for 8 hours, denied her access to her chain of command, and while we did it, she was being destroyed online, nationally, internationally. The weight of his words hung in the air. Sarah felt strangely calm. The storm was almost over one way or another. Either Admiral Rodriguez would confirm her service and this nightmare would begin to end, or No, she wouldn't consider the alternative. The Admiral would come. The Admiral would tell the truth. She had to. At 4:52 a.m. they heard it, the distant thump of helicopter rotors. The sound grew louder, closer, until it was directly overhead. Through the small window high in the interrogation room wall, Sarah glimpsed lights descending. Chen stood. I should meet her. Stay here, Morrison ordered. Both of you. The base commander is meeting her. He'll escort her down. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Sarah could hear voices in the hallway, urgent and tense, footsteps approaching, multiple people. The door opened. Admiral Catherine Rodriguez entered like a force of nature. She was in her early 50s, tall and imposing in dress whites, 3 stars gleaming on her collar. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, her face carved from determination and barely controlled fury. Behind her was the base commander, looking pale and anxious, and 2 Navy lawyers carrying briefcases. Rodriguez's eyes swept the room, taking in everything in an instant. The harsh lights, the uncomfortable chairs, the two-way mirror, Sarah's exhausted face. Her jaw clenched so hard that Sarah could see the muscles working. "Show me your arm," Rodriguez commanded, her voice sharp as a knife. Sarah stood on trembling legs and extended her right forearm, rolling up her sleeve to fully expose the tattoo. Rodriguez crossed the room in 3 strides. She took Sarah's arm gently, so gently after hours of harsh treatment, and examined the tattoo. Her finger traced the compass rose, the modified eagle, the Roman numerals. Her eyes glistened with moisture that she blinked away rapidly. "This is real," she said, her voice tight with emotion. She turned to face Morrison and Chen, and her expression could have melted steel. "This tattoo was designed by me personally. It was given to 3 women who completed Operation Silent Trident, a classified program to integrate female operators into Navy SEAL teams. Sarah Martinez is one of those 3 women." Morrison's face drained of color. "Admiral, we had no way to verify." "You had every way to verify." Rodriguez's voice was controlled but laced with fury. "She gave you her name. She gave you mine. She told you the records were classified, and instead of following proper channels, instead of treating her with the respect a decorated warrior deserves, you held her here for 8 hours while she was torn apart by the media." Chen spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. "Admiral, with respect, her records don't appear in any standard database." "Because they're not in standard databases, Agent Chen." Rodriguez moved to stand beside Sarah, a gesture of protection and solidarity. "They're in JWICS, the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communications System, under SCI protocols. You need top-secret SCI with special program access to view them, which neither of you have." She pulled out a tablet and began typing rapidly. "I'm accessing her file now." She turned the screen to show Morrison and Chen. Even from where Sarah stood, she could see the classified headers, the official seals, the documentation. Rodriguez began reading aloud. "Martinez, Sarah Elena, service number classified. Graduated Bud S Class 347, January 2017. Assigned to Naval Special Warfare Development Group under administrative cover. Completed 2 deployments to CENTCOM AOR. Awarded Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Valor, Bronze Star, Purple Heart." "Purple Heart," Chen interrupted. "When was she wounded?" "Syria, 2019. She took shrapnel while evacuating a wounded teammate. Continued mission despite injuries." Rodriguez's eyes found Sarah's. "She carried that teammate 3 miles to the extraction point. He weighed 190 pounds. She saved his life." Morrison sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "Oh God, what have we done?" Rodriguez wasn't finished. "Sarah Martinez has conducted 23 combat operations. She's been under enemy fire 47 times. She saved American lives, gathered intelligence that prevented terrorist attacks, and served her country with distinction." Her voice dropped to something deadly quiet. "And tonight, Her own country arrested her, interrogated her like a criminal, and stood by while she was destroyed in the court of public opinion. The base commander, who'd been silent until now, stepped forward. "Admiral, on behalf of Naval Base Coronado, I offer our sincerest apologies." "Your apologies mean nothing," Rodriguez cut him off. While Ms. Martinez sat in this room, protesters gathered at her home. Her mother received death threats. Her employer fired her. Her face was broadcast worldwide as a fraud. Do you understand the damage that's been done? Sarah felt her legs weakening. The adrenaline that had sustained her was draining away, leaving only exhaustion and the crushing weight of what had happened. Rodriguez caught her as she swayed, guiding her back into the chair. "Get her water and food, real food, not vending machine garbage." She glared at Morrison and Chen until they scrambled to comply. When they'd left, Rodriguez knelt beside Sarah's chair, her formal bearing softening. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry it took this long. I was in a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility with no phone access. When I finally got word," she shook her head, "I came as fast as I could." "You're here now," Sarah whispered. "That's what matters. What they've done to you, the media, the accusations, we're going to fix this." "Can it be fixed?" Sarah asked, genuinely uncertain. 9 million people watched that video. They believe I'm a fraud." Rodriguez's expression hardened with determination. "Then 9 million people are going to learn they were wrong. And they're going to learn what you really are, a hero they didn't deserve." Morrison and Chen returned with water, sandwiches, and a first aid kit. They moved carefully, almost reverently, like people who just realized they'd been handling a live grenade. Rodriguez stood, her Admiral persona back in place. "Agent Morrison, Agent Chen, you will document every detail of this incident. Every question asked, every accusation made, every hour Ms. Martinez spent in this room. The Inspector General will be reviewing your conduct." "Yes, ma'am," they said in unison, their voices subdued. Rodriguez turned to the base commander. "Contact your public affairs office. I want a press conference set up for 800. I'll be making a statement about Operation Silent Trident and Ms. Martinez's service." "Admiral," Sarah said, finding her voice, "if you reveal the program, won't that compromise?" "The program was scheduled for declassification next month anyway," Rodriguez interrupted gently. "We're just accelerating the timeline. Besides, they've already compromised you. The least I can do is give you your honor back." Sarah felt tears finally break through, not tears of despair, but of relief. After 8 hours of being called a liar, of having her truth denied and her service mocked, someone with authority and power was standing beside her and saying, "She's real. She's telling the truth. She's one of us." Admiral Rodriguez placed her hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Welcome back from the cold, Martinez. Time to come into the light." Dawn broke over Naval Base Coronado with the harsh light of truth. By 6:00 a.m., the base public affairs office looked like a war room. Phones rang constantly. Reporters were already gathering outside the main gate, their satellite trucks forming a small city of media equipment. Sarah sat in a private office, showered and wearing a fresh set of khakis that Admiral Rodriguez's aide had procured. She looked at herself in the mirror, dark circles under her eyes, face drawn from exhaustion, but her spine was straight. She was still standing. Rodriguez entered without knocking, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Press conference in 90 minutes. You ready?" "Do I have a choice?" "You always have a choice." Rodriguez handed her the coffee and sat down. "You can stay behind the scenes if you want. I'll handle the press. You've been through enough." Sarah shook her head. "No, I need to be there. I need to face them." Rodriguez studied her with approval. "That's the Sarah Martinez I remember. The one who never backed down, even when every instructor in Bud S wanted her to quit." "They still talk about Hell Week." "They do, Instructor Davis especially. He rides every female candidate hard because of you. He tells them, if Martinez could do it at 56 and 135 pounds, you can damn well do it too. Rodriguez smiled slightly. You became his standard. Sarah absorbed that. Her suffering had meaning beyond herself. Her success had opened doors, even if those doors remained invisible to most of the world. Until today. At 7:45 a.m., they moved to the press briefing room. Through the door, Sarah could hear the chaos, dozens of reporters shouting questions, cameras clicking, the general mayhem of major breaking news. Rodriguez's face was calm, but Sarah noticed the slight tension in her jaw. Whatever happens in there, I've got your six. Remember that. They entered together. The room erupted. Flashes from dozens of cameras turned the space into a strobe light. Reporters surged forward, shouting questions that blended into incomprehensible noise. Base security pushed them back behind the designated press area. Admiral Rodriguez stepped to the podium, and her presence alone commanded silence. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Good morning. I'm Admiral Catherine Rodriguez, Deputy Commander of Naval Special Warfare Command. I'm here to address the situation involving Ms. Sarah Martinez and to correct several dangerous misconceptions that have been circulating. She paused, letting the silence build. Operation Silent Trident was a classified program initiated in 2016 to test the integration of female operators into Navy SEAL teams. 5 candidates were selected. 3 completed training. Sarah Martinez was one of those 3. The room exploded again. Rodriguez raised her hand for silence. Martinez graduated BUD/S Class 347 in January 2017. She completed all requirements to the same standard as her male classmates. She then deployed twice to combat zones in support of Operation Inherent Resolve. She conducted 23 combat operations. She was wounded in action in Syria while saving a teammate's life. She was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor, the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Valor, and the Purple Heart. Rodriguez pulled out documents, holding them up to the cameras. These are her official service records, declassified as of 600 this morning. These are her award citations. These are after-action reports from her commanding officers. All of it is real. All of it has been verified by Naval Special Warfare Command and the Department of Defense. A reporter shouted, "Why was this kept secret?" The program was classified to protect operational security and to avoid political interference during the testing phase. Female integration into special operations was, and remains, a politically sensitive topic. The Pentagon made the decision to conduct the trial quietly. So she was telling the truth the whole time. Rodriguez's expression hardened. Yes, Sarah Martinez was telling the truth, and instead of being believed, she was arrested, detained, and publicly destroyed. While she sat in an interrogation room for 8 hours, her life was dismantled. Her home was vandalized. Her family received death threats. Her employer fired her. Millions of people watched videos calling her a fraud, a liar, a disgrace. The room had gone silent. The weight of collective guilt was palpable. Ms. Martinez served her country with honor and distinction. She risked her life repeatedly. She earned her place among the elite warriors of naval special warfare, and her reward was humiliation and character assassination. Rodriguez's voice was cold steel. We failed her. The system failed her, and I'm here to make sure that failure is corrected. She stepped aside. Ms. Martinez will now make a brief statement. Sarah approached the podium on legs that felt steadier than they had any right to be. She looked out at the sea of faces, cameras, microphones. 24 hours ago, these people, or people like them, had been calling for her head. My name is Sarah Martinez, she began, her voice quiet but clear. I am a Navy SEAL. I earned that title through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. I earned it the same way every SEAL has earned it, by refusing to quit when everything in me wanted to. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I don't blame the investigators who detained me. They were doing their jobs. Stolen valor is a real problem, and they were trying to protect the integrity of military service. But I do blame the rush to judgment. I blame the millions of people who watched a 3-minute video and decided they knew the truth about my life. Her voice grew stronger. I served in silence because my country asked me to. I stayed classified because the mission required it. But silence has a cost. When you serve invisibly, people don't believe you exist. And when you finally step into the light, they call you a liar. A reporter called out, "What do you want people to know?" Sarah looked directly at the cameras. "I want people to know that women have been serving in special operations for years. We've been fighting, bleeding, and dying alongside our male teammates. We're not social experiments or political statements. We're warriors, and we deserve the same respect as anyone who's earned the right to wear this uniform." She pulled up her sleeve, showing the modified trident tattoo. "This tattoo was given to me by Admiral Rodriguez after I graduated Bud S. It's a reminder that some truths are too important to stay hidden forever, even when revealing them comes at great personal cost." Another reporter, "What about Marcus Holloway? Will you pursue legal action?" Sarah's expression hardened slightly. Marcus Holloway built his career on exposing frauds, but he forgot something crucial: truth matters more than views. Verification matters more than going viral. He destroyed my reputation without doing basic fact-checking. He turned millions of people against me with edited footage and inflammatory accusations. She leaned into the microphone. "So yes, my lawyers will be reviewing his actions for defamation, libel, and the damage he's caused. But more than that, I hope he learns something. I hope everyone who shared his video, who called for my arrest, who sent death threats to my family, I hope they learn that rushing to judgment has consequences." Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward again. "The Navy will be conducting a full review of how this situation was handled. We're implementing new protocols to protect classified operators from false stolen valor accusations. We're also accelerating the full declassification of the female SEAL integration program." She looked directly at the cameras. "And to every woman who's considering a career in special operations, don't let this discourage you. Sarah Martinez proved it's possible. 2 other women proved it's possible. More will follow. The door is open. You just have to be strong enough to walk through it." The press conference ended with a roar of questions, but Rodriguez and Sarah walked out together, leaving the chaos behind. In the hallway, Rodriguez stopped. "How do you feel?" Sarah thought about it. Vindicated, exhausted, angry, relieved, all of it at once. "That's fair." Rodriguez checked her watch. "In about 30 minutes, every news outlet in America is going to be running this story. The narrative is about to flip. Hard." Sarah pulled out her phone for the first time in hours. It had 847 missed calls, 2,934 text messages, and thousands of social media notifications. The first headline she saw made her breath catch. "Breaking. Navy confirms fake SEAL was real. Critics scramble after wrongful accusations." The reckoning had begun. And somewhere Marcus Holloway was watching his empire crumble. The internet never forgets, but it does change its mind. Spectacularly. Sarah sat in a coffee shop in downtown San Diego, her laptop open to a news article. The headline read, "Marcus Holloway loses 2.3 million subscribers after Sarah Martinez vindication. YouTube channel demonetized." She didn't feel the satisfaction she'd expected. Watching someone's life implode, even someone who tried to destroy hers, brought no joy. Only a hollow awareness that the court of public opinion was fickle and ruthless, cutting down whoever it had most recently elevated. Marcus had posted a public apology video 3 days after the Admiral's press conference. 23 minutes of excuses wrapped in half-hearted contrition. "I made a mistake," he'd said, sitting in front of a ring light in his studio. I should have verified more thoroughly before exposing Sarah Martinez. I got caught up in the moment, in wanting to protect stolen valor, and I didn't follow my own standards." The comments section had eviscerated him. "You destroyed an American hero for views. You didn't make a mistake. You ruined someone's life for profit. Unsubscribing, you're finished." His sponsors had abandoned him within 48 hours. His merchandise site went dark. Other veterans' channels that had once collaborated with him issued statements condemning his reckless journalism. The very community he'd claimed to protect had turned on him with the same ferocity he'd once directed at others. Sarah's lawyer had filed a defamation lawsuit seeking $15 million in damages. Marcus's response had been desperate. Multiple videos claiming he couldn't afford that it would destroy him financially, that he'd made an honest mistake. The lawsuit was proceeding regardless. "Mind if I sit?" Sarah looked up to see a young woman in Marine Corps fatigues, her name tape reading SULLIVAN. The woman's expression was uncertain, almost starstruck. "Please," Sarah said, closing her laptop. Sullivan sat, clutching her coffee cup like a lifeline. "I'm sorry to bother you, I recognized you from the news, from the press conference." "It's okay. I'm trying out for Marine Special Operations next month." Sullivan's voice was barely above a whisper. "Raiders. I've been training for 2 years, but I keep wondering if I'm crazy, if I'm setting myself up for failure. And then I saw your story and—" She trailed off, her eyes glistening. "You proved it's possible." Sarah felt something shift in her chest, the weight she'd been carrying since that night lightening just slightly. This was why Admiral Rodriguez had insisted on going public, not for vindication but for this, for every woman who needed to see that the door was open. "It's possible," Sarah said firmly. "It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. You're going to want to quit 1,000 times, but if you don't quit, you'll make it." "Did they make it harder for you, because you're a woman?" Sarah smiled, but it was edged with memory. "They made it exactly as hard as it needed to be. That's the point. The standard doesn't change. You don't get special treatment. You just get the same opportunity to prove yourself." Sullivan nodded, visibly gathering courage from Sarah's words. "Thank you for what you did, for not quitting when everyone said you were lying." After Sullivan left, Sarah opened her laptop again. Her inbox was overflowing. Interview requests from 60 Minutes, CNN, NPR. Book deal offers from major publishers. Speaking engagement requests from corporations, universities, military organizations. Admiral Rodriguez had warned her, "You're about to become famous. Use it wisely." Sarah had made her choice. She'd accepted 3 interviews, 60 Minutes, a military podcast, and the New York Times. She declined book deals and speaking fees. Instead, she was working on something else. 3 months later. The office space in downtown Washington, D.C. was small but functional. A donated desk, 2 laptops, a coffee maker, and a sign on the door. The Invisible Warriors Foundation. Sarah stood in front of a camera, recording the Foundation's first promotional video. Admiral Rodriguez, now officially retired from the Navy, stood behind the camera directing. "Tell them why this matters," Rodriguez prompted. Sarah took a breath. "Female special operators exist. We've existed for years. We've served in classified programs in acknowledged units in every branch of the military. But when we transition to civilian life, we face unique challenges. Our service is questioned. Our records are sometimes still classified. We can't network the way male special operators can because people don't believe we exist." She gestured to the office around her. The Invisible Warriors Foundation exists to support female special operations veterans. We provide legal assistance when their service is challenged. We help with record declassification. We connect them with resources, medical care, employment opportunities, mental health services. We make sure that women who served in silence don't have to suffer in silence. Rodriguez called cut. That was perfect. Sarah sank into a chair, exhausted but purposeful. The foundation had been her idea, but Rodriguez had made it real with her connections, her reputation, and her relentless drive. In the 3 months since the press conference, the world had changed for Sarah. Her employer had offered her job back with a formal apology and significant raise. She declined. Her apartment building had waived 2 months' rent and issued a public apology. She'd moved anyway, too many bad memories. The death threats had stopped, replaced by fan mail and apologies. People who'd called her a fraud now called her a hero. The pendulum had swung completely in the opposite direction, and Sarah found the adoration almost as uncomfortable as the hatred had been. She just wanted to be seen for what she was, a veteran who'd done her job. 6 months later, Sarah stood before the House Armed Services Committee, testifying about gaps in military personnel databases and the systemic failures that had led to her detention. "The problem isn't that investigators did their jobs," she told the assembled representatives. "The problem is that classified service creates a vulnerability. Operators who serve in silent programs become ghosts, and when they try to re-enter the visible world, they have no proof of their existence." Her testimony was calm, factual, devastating. She detailed every hour of her interrogation, every accusation, every threat. The committee members listened in rapt silence. "I propose the Silent Service Recognition Act," Sarah concluded. "This legislation would create a secure database accessible to law enforcement and VA officials that confirms classified service without compromising operational security. It would prevent what happened to me from happening to other operators." The bill would pass 4 months later with bipartisan support. 1 year later, the Invisible Warriors Foundation had grown beyond Sarah's wildest expectations. 23 female special operations veterans had come forward, joining the network. Some were from acknowledged programs. Others, like Sarah, had served in classified units that were only now being revealed. Among them was Rodriguez, the teammate Sarah had carried 3 miles in Syria. He'd testified on her behalf, appeared in interviews, and become an advocate for female operators. "She saved my life," he'd told 60 Minutes. "Anyone who questions her service can answer to me." Admiral Rodriguez, Director Rodriguez now, stood beside Sarah at the Foundation's first annual gala. 300 attendees had donated over $2 million to support female veteran programs. "You know what the best part is?" Rodriguez asked, surveying the crowd. "What's that?" "That tattoo on your arm. It used to be a mark of invisible service. Now it's a symbol. Women see it and know they're not alone. They know others have walked this path before them." Sarah looked at her forearm, at the modified trident that had saved her that night in the interrogation room. Jessica Chen's name was tattooed just below it now, a memorial to the sister-in-arms who hadn't lived to see this day. "She should be here," Sarah said quietly. "She is." Rodriguez touched Sarah's shoulder. "Every woman who tries out for special operations, every female operator who serves with honor, every veteran who refuses to stay silent, Jessica is in all of them, just like you are." Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Sullivan, the young Marine she'd met in the coffee shop. "I made it through selection. Thank you for showing me it was possible." Sarah smiled, feeling something she hadn't felt since before that terrible night: hope. She'd survived Hell Week. She'd survived combat. She'd survived her own country's disbelief. But more than surviving, she'd transformed her pain into purpose. The tattoo on her arm caught the light. A compass rose with 8 points, guiding others through the darkness she'd endured. She was no longer invisible. And neither were the warriors who would come after her. The end.